History nerds of Reddit. What's a historical fact/tidbit that will always get you to chuckle? Napoleon had a brother who lived in New Jersey. Vinny Bonaparte. Vinny born to party. A Polish artillery supply corps adopted a bear, made him a soldier, and kept him for the duration of the war. His name was Wojtek. After the war he retired to Edinburgh Zoo where his old comrades would come and give him cigarettes. There's a statue of him in Edinburgh as well. I absolutely love the idea of Polish veterans traveling to Edinburgh for this. Bartolome, where are you going? Scotland. I must give Comrade Bear cigarettes. Why am I laughing at the thought of a bear having flashbacks? Imagine patrolling the Alps and you see elephants rolling up, but you don't even know what an elephant is. Imagine patrolling a trench and you see a tank rolling up, but you don't even know what a tank is. Masho's runes. Archaeologists explored some old Viking chambers and found inscriptions that were 14 feet tall and unreadable. After years deciphering these runes, they translated to, "This is very high, we haven't changed, edit, fixed some stuff." I wish I could see the look on the face of the archaeologist who translated it. In all the Apollo missions, 3 guys were sent to the moon. But only 2 guys got into the lander and went down and walked on the moon. The 3rd guy stayed in the command module in orbit and had to listen to the radio chatter of the other 2 guys talking about how badass it was to walk on the moon. In the 1600s there was a popular trend of painting English/Dutch ceramics with a depiction of Adam and Eve. Most looked hilarious. This looks like the OG version of MS Paint doodles. How does Adam have the bigger tits? This was the early days. God hadn't gotten the whole tits thing figured out yet. One of the founding fathers, Gouverneur Morris, killed himself by inserting a whale bone into his urethra to help clear up a urinary tract blockage. He must have been hung to need a whale bone. You know what? Maybe that's the legacy he wanted to leave behind. It's not like you want to be known for using a rib bone off of a rat. Username checks out. Giles Corey, one of the men accused and killed during the Salem witch trials, was pressed to death. There was a phrase an accused person was supposed to say even they were brought in for charges, without which a trial couldn't happen. He paused, evidently a bit shocked at what he considered the absurdity of being accused. IRC he was like 75 years old, and the panel he was brought before began to panic. Then he realized what was going on, and decided to simply refuse to say the phrase, so they couldn't try him for being a bitch. He was brought to basically a ditch, a plank of wood placed over him, and large stones placed on the wood. The intention was to press the phrase out of them. His last words are alleged to be, "More weight." This was a genius move on his part, and an OG. Take a third option. If he confessed, his family would lose all their property. If he plead innocent, he'd go to court, lose, and his family would lose all of their property. If he dies before that, however, he's still a good Christian man and they can't prosecute his corpse. So his family keeps everything. In World War II, Germans were dropping demoralizing letters on London. British used them as cheap toilet paper. They weren't gonna let that shit keep them down. Apparently, the Germans also dropped a bunch of papers on Allied positions showing their wives cheating on the soldiers while they were away. The soldiers just used it as porn. The bat bomb. A dentist friend of Eleanor Roosevelt's proposed that not only were the Japanese terrified of bats, bats could roost in difficult-to-access areas of Japanese buildings. Combine this with a timed incendiary device in the wood and rice paper construction of Japanese buildings. The Army Air Force spent 6 months trying to build the damn things and achieved little aside from burning down the test range at Carlsbad Army Airfield Auxiliary Air Base when some of the bats escaped, nested under a fuel tank, and did their patriotic duty 6,000 miles from the intended target. After the debacle at Carlsbad, the USAAF fobbed the project off to the Navy, who wisely passed it along to the Marines. To everyone's surprise, the Marine Corps was able to get the project to work, even carrying out a successful test at Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. Unfortunately, the project lost out to the atomic bomb, and was cancelled in early 1944. Bruce Wayne could not be reached for comment. I saw a special on the craziest World War II declassified proposed weapons, and turns out the pigeon bomb was actually a plausible weapon. There were a lot of plausible, weird as fuck weapons being explored in World War II. The Germans actually attached a bend to the barrel of the STG-44 and fitted it with a periscope to allow it to fire around corners. It worked for shit. Caused bullets to shatter, and generally fouled up both the attachment and the rifle barrel, but it's the precursor to modern systems like the corner shot. Pepsi, the soft drinks, once had the 6th largest military in the world. Due to an agreement with the Russians, they supplied them with drinks, until Russia couldn't pay for them anymore. So instead they gave Pepsi an arsenal of submarines and other military equipment, leading to them having the 6th largest military in the world at that moment. Wasn't it Pepsi that offered a Harrier jet as a prize? Then someone collected enough points to actually get it. If so, how's that for a plot twist? They should have used a Russian sub instead, lol. Please continue. Pepsi later sold the ships to a Swedish company for scrap. Thank you. And a little cherry on top, the president of Pepsi, Donald Kendall, told the National Security Advisor of USA, "We're disarming the USSR faster than you." The US and North Korea almost went to war over a tree. The US wanted to chop down a few branches because they could not see the DPRK guard post. The US chopped some branches and pissed off the North Koreans. The North Korean guards killed 2 U.S. soldiers. In retaliation, the U.S. created Operation Paul Bunyan. The mission chopped down the tree. A few guys went to the tree and had the support of a U.S. infantry company, and 20 utility helicopters and 7 Cobra attack helicopters circled behind them. Behind these helicopters, B-52 Stratofortresses came from Guam, escorted by US F-4 Phantom IIs from Kunsan Air Base, and South Korean F-5 and F-86 fighters were visible flying across the sky at high altitude. At Daegu Air Base, F-111 bombers of the 366th Tactical Fighter Wing out of Mountain Home Air Force Base were stationed. And F-4C and D Phantoms from the 18th TFW Kadena Air Base and Clark Air Base were also deployed. The aircraft carrier USS Midway Task Force had also been moved to a station just offshore. The mission was a success. Literally just a huge fuck you, with a pure military display of might. In 80 BC, a man named Verres became governor of Sicily. Was simultaneously an absolute tyrant and madlad. On one hand, he would tax his citizens so highly and overwork his farmers so much there was an alarmingly high suicide rate in the rural community of Sicily. On the other hand, the man accomplished hilarious levels of shithousery. When invited for dinner by people, he would have his servants steal expensive bits of artwork, jewelry and cutlery when no one was looking, and then leave. My favorite thing he did was appoint a butcher as head of the Sicilian Navy just so he could sleep with the Mont's wife. This led to pirates sacking Sicily, because of course it fucking did. He was a butcher in charge of a navy protecting an island in the middle of the fucking Mediterranean, and then doing a lap of honor round the island. Verres eventually retired forcibly after word of his fuckery had reached Rome, to the south of France, where he would live to a ripe old age before being proscribed, assassinated by order of the Roman dictatorship by Mark Antony over a dispute about one of his probably stolen artworks. All in all, an amusing life. How Emperor Frederick Barbarossa died by drowning in waist-deep water. And then how Hitler named a military invasion after a man who died by drowning in waist-deep water, which then failed. For context, Barbarossa was returning from a crusade and likely tired and ill. He fell from his horse while crossing a river and was unable to escape due to his heavy plate armor. All in all, not a super uncommon cause of death among soldiers of the time, but kind of funny that it happened to a king. In WW2, a German submarine was sunk due to a malfunctioning toilet. The toilet had this very tricky system with valves etc., so a guy uses it, but doesn't know which valve to close, so water keeps entering into the sub from the toilet, and it was sunk. The captain's name was Schlitt, I think. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Literally everything goes wrong until by total coincidence they get the shot. And the assassin that made the shot took a cyanide pill that was out of date and tried to drown himself in a river that was 2 to 4 inches deep. LMAO. That people from Hartlepool had never seen a monkey before, put it on trial, and hung it for not answering any questions, so it must have been a spy. Australian city Melbourne was founded by John Batman. He wanted to name it Batmania. The word quiz was created on a bet between two professors in England. One bet the other he could create a word. He then proceeded to paint the word quiz on walls all over town, causing the local scholars to guess at a definition, cementing the word's existence.